I really just want to kind of tell the story of how we started our own herd. So essentially, the only cows that we had on this property were ones that we were growing out, nothing to actually build a herd. Well, then we got the lease on the third property that we manage, which was the former cornfield where a lot of my videos are shot. Probably most of the videos are shot. And we didn't have any animals to put over there, but these people were willing to let us farm. So I ran an ad on social media for custom grazing. I had grass, and if anybody needed some cows to graze or whatnot, I would take care of it. Well, a couple of people reached out. Ended up, a guy had 13 cows or so. We struck a deal, baseline contract that you off a Google search, and I mean, I guess now you could use AI for all that, but just a real generic um, custom grazing contract. And at the time, that totaled out to, I have no idea what the rates would be now in this area, but that worked out to around dollar 25 per head per day. And based on his current herd size, it was only like 250, 300, about $300 a month. Well, the guy I had the agreement with, he paid me the first 2 months, and then by the third month, he was wanting to get rid of steers. So he was trying to grow his herd, and I said, well, look, I need steers to grow out. I said, why don't you just pay me in steers? So all his cows were calving over there. And actually, they started calving at the first property, that our very first lease, that we only ran them over there for a couple of months, which is actually what I'm going to start doing with this herd right up here behind me. They're going to our first property, um, the small one, but they'll only be over there over winter, which is rested for an entire year. And we got a barn full of hay over there, so that's where we're going to overwinter them. But anyhow, so yeah, so now I was custom grazing this guy's cows on these other people's property, kind of like Greg Judy, um, no risk ranching style. Even though I never read the book, I've definitely heard him talking about it quite a bit on his videos. And I'm getting paid in the calves and the steers. So we start bringing them all over here, and then we ended up finding a deal on some really cheap, barely weaned heifers, like 3-month-old heifers, that I wouldn't advise anybody to do that. But people do wean them early. They probably maybe had raised them from bottle calves. I don't think so, because they're not that friendly. But anyhow, we bought those cheap from South Carolina. The guy delivered them, and then we just ended up growing those until they were 6 to 8 months old. And then we decided to keep one of the steers a bull. So from the guy's herd that we were custom grazing, we decided not to steer one, and we would keep that as a bull. And it worked out really great, because the guy who we were custom grazing for, he had inherited the herd from his grandfather, who had been focused on grass genetics since the 60s. I mean, that's basically how he built his herd, and selected was for proper grass-fed genetics. And there's Red Angus and Hereford in the breed. But so we kept a bull back from him. And once they were about 6, 8 months old, that's when we put them in with the girls we bought from South Carolina. So that has worked out really well, and they've all bred and calved off of him. And now we have a different bull in there with them, who is I don't know. I'm sitting here watching them run. I don't know why they're running off into the trees down there. But I'm about to move them. I need to finish this up so I can move them. But yeah, so they all calved off of that bull, and now we have a different bull in here who is half South Pole, quarter Red Angus, and quarter Hereford, and he actually come from this area, was born here, and not on our farm, from another farmer in northeast Georgia, which, you know, I know there's a million different farmers that'll tell you a million different things regarding genetics, but one piece of advice that was given to me that I think is really good, and I think Greg Judy and some of these other guys talk about it, is find someone in your area, and I know it's going to be hard to do, but find someone in your area who is raising the animals the way you want to raise them. If they're feeding them grain, if they're not moving them, if they're not just a forage-based operation when it comes to their cattle and ruminants, I would not consider breeding stock from that type of farm. But anyhow, that's for a later video. But so we introduced that, yeah. So now where are we at now? We're on that bull. We're on that South Pole, 50% South Pole, quarter Red Angus, quarter Hereford. The next group of calves that comes out of these girls, which is now what 6, I think 4, 2, so it's now 8. So it'll be 8 getting bred. Well, probably only 6 will get bred back right away, and then the other heifers will get bred later on. But anyhow, that's how we started our herd, with basically nothing. You know, I mean, it wasn't nothing. It was work, but it was more of a barter system. And then yes, we did have to buy those heifers, but we did find cheap ones. And then most farmers would recommend that you don't start with heifers either. But you know, I think some of the best advice also given to me is start with bred mamas. I mean, get you some, you know, bred cows that have already calved before, and you know, they're just proven you're not going to have any issues, which we were very fortunate. None of these heifers had any problems, and I think part of that was by putting that smaller grass-fed bull on them, you know, instead of one of these big monsters or whatnot. But yeah, and then we brought our steers over from the other places, the ones that we're finishing. Everything that's steered is going to come over here and run with this herd that we'll be finishing out, but this herd's getting moved anyhow to our first lease. But yep, that's how we got started with the cattle. See y'all on the next one.